Okay guys, welcome back. This is probably the most advanced portion of the course. You're going to have to kind of follow along closely, but obviously you can rewatch this and you may have to back up, take some notes on this. I suggest that you do, unless you're very familiar with themed networks and using IFTTT syndication. So we're going to get into all this and how it can greatly benefit you and give you a massive, massive competitive advantage on maps. And nobody's talking about this stuff for use of maps. You know, they're just not. So real quick, I want to preface my conversation in this video by telling you I did not come up with this stuff, guys. I learned this stuff from Bradley Benner and the guys over at Semantic Mastery. I strongly suggest that you check out, the Semantic Mastery courses. I'm going to drop a link to some of the courses that they have over there, learning things about IFTTT and networks. So this is stuff that I didn't come up with on my own. I just want to clarify that. But what I have done is I've used it in a very different way than they're teaching over there. So they're teaching it mostly to get you ranked, get your videos ranked, and sort of end of story. They do talk about using blog syndication networks, and it's very different, by the way, from a private blog network. We're not talking about that. They do talk about ways that you can create a network where every bit of content that goes on your blog gets syndicated out. And I'm going to teach you some methods that I've used. But basically that's where we're going to go off into a different sort of realm here, right? These are ways that I've used this, tested it to where it works very, very well. So I'm not taking anything away from Semantic Mastery. I learned this whole setup from those guys, very, very smart guys over there. I'm just going to show you a different way to do this and sort of ways that we can use it to our advantage for maps and ways that really haven't been discussed very much, I would say. Of how we can use this to, increase the authority of our website, increase pages on our website, and increase the authority of blog posts on our website, which then, if interlinked properly, will increase the authority of pages on the site. And remember, when it comes to maps, guys, we are mostly in a blended algorithm age where you've got to have a pretty darn high authoritative site, a domain authority site that's pretty high. That matters a lot. I showed that in an earlier video where we went through the maps listing and then we looked at organic, and the people that were ranked at the top of maps were in order ranked at the top of organic. And then if we looked further at the domain authority of those sites, it was very clear that the domain authority of the top site on maps, top site organic, was higher than the second position, and the second was higher than the third position, right? So we looked at that. And what I'm going to be teaching you here is very powerful. This is going to kill several birds with one stone. We're not talking about, using this to get a bunch of unstructured citations, although we can use these to do that. What we're going to be talking about is how we can set up these fully themed networks, these massive networks, and then automate everything that we do from that, okay? So let's just dive in. I'm going to show you really quickly. This is kind of the main model that they teach over at Semantic Mastery, and this is really cool stuff for YouTube ranking. I mean, it's incredibly powerful. So think back to the earlier video that I did where I was essentially saying, hey guys, let's create a real mini network, right? Of just a couple different sites where we would set up a blogger account, and we would, we already have a Google Plus account set up because it's going to be set up once we do our maps listing. And we would set up a YouTube channel, and we already have a Picasa web album account where all of our geotagged photos are. And what I did is I set up a mini little network of Google properties, 4 Google properties, all tied together, all, by the way, with the same persona, Red Hill Family Law, all thematically relevant. It's all going to be about divorce. And in that case, it's going to be geo-relevant too. I might put, articles on Blogger about Irvine, about Orange County. And, I was using that for a very, very specific purpose, which was to get unstructured citations on highly authoritative Google-owned properties and interlinking those properties and personas in a way that sends signals to Google that, number one, I'm not hiding anything. Number two, these are highly authoritative properties. We recognize they are because, you tell us they are, and we know it's because they're Google-owned properties. And I'm going to get unstructured citations and things like that. So that was kind of a mini network. What I'm going to be showing you here is a massive network where it's the same concept, guys. Everything's going to be niche relevant or geo-specific relevant. It's all going to be themed to where when we add content, it's going to be about divorce. It's going to be about family law. It's going to be about the city of Irvine. It's going to be about Orange County, California, wherever it is you're using your, whatever you're trying to rank for on maps. And so, all personas match. Most of the properties are interlinked, or at least some of the major properties. And what we're doing is we're using the semantic web to our advantage. We are showing Google that there are relationships among the largest sites out there, the ones that are not only the Google properties, but in this case, Google Data Hub partners, where they've told us, hey, this is very, very important. We believe these sites to be important. And I know, I do a big YouTube training, and a lot of people miss this point. But if you go to YouTube and you add a video, even manually, when you're done, Google asks you to share that video, and it even tells you where you should share it, right? So we have Google saying these are the important sites to be sharing, this video on. And people ignore that step and then wonder why they don't rank. This is the same concept. We have all these, Google-owned properties and Google Data Hub providers where they've said, we view these as important. So my point is why would you ignore that? You should embrace it, and then we should do it in a way that ties everything together. So really quickly, by way of background, obviously domain authority stacking is a huge buzzword across the internet. And it obviously has some merit to it. I think it's something that was set up by Jimmy Kelly and some of those guys, maybe at Network Empire. And I'm not taking anything away from that at all. This stuff definitely can work. I view it more, however, as more of a limited or manual process. And I don't think it necessarily, in my opinion anyway, doesn't have quite the weight of what I'm going to show you with these these giant themed, interconnected persona type of networks. So with, my understanding, again, with domain authority stacking, I don't do any of it really. So don't send me any hate mail if I've got this wrong. But basically you're taking a couple different properties, not, 20 or so that are in this ring like you see. You're taking a few different properties that have a high domain authority, and you're putting content on one and you're linking to another. You're putting in content on that one, linking to another, which then links to your money site. So it's usually 2 or 3 properties that are interlinked, and then in the end, you are linking out, to some point on your money site. And the idea is that you're stacking up the authority of the various domains. Like Twitter has a massive domain authority, WordPress, massive domain authority, Blogger, same thing. So if I were to connect those 3 by putting content on one and then linking, instead of then just immediately linking to my site, I link over, like, let's say from Twitter to WordPress, then I have an article on WordPress that links over to my Facebook or Blogger or something like that finally links to my site. The idea is that it's now sort of almost like a snowball. It's picking up the domain authority of each site, and it is eventually when you add the link to your site, it has much more authority at that point. It has more weight. That's a really cool method. The thing that I don't like about it is that it's more manual from what I've seen. You're creating just a couple different properties manually, really, posting something to the next site, linking. So you're kind of doing this stuff by hand. Obviously, you can train a VA to do that stuff. But what we're doing is really kind of the same thing, but we're doing it in a much more powerful way. So instead of just doing, say, 3 sites that are interconnected, and by the way, with domain authority stacking, the other limitation is that they don't, although they are themed, meaning that each piece of content that points to the next is going to be related thematically to the last piece of content, which is related thematically to your site. The profiles, the personas, are not necessarily interconnected. They are disjointed or disconnected. And so where I believe this network, this giant network, has a massive advantage is it's still taking the domain authority of every single site, but we're using the semantic web to our advantage, to our massive advantage, by basically showing Google that we understand, number one, that these are very important properties. Number two, we're creating thematic relationships between all properties. Number three, the domain authority is interlinked in many cases, right? So when we put something on YouTube and it syndicates out across all these sites, and we've got several of these sites that are interconnected, now the thematic relevance is interconnected amongst all these different high domain authority sites. And then, fourthly, it's basically allowing us to, show the relationship between all these different properties. We've got personas that are identical. They match. We're not trying to hide anything. We're letting Google know that, kind of like my mini model that I showed earlier with just the Google properties, we're recognizing, Google, that these are all the properties you've said are important. Everything is about my business or my persona that I create. If it's not a business, they all match. All of the content is thematically the same. So it's creating a semantic pattern where Google can say this site is related to this site and this site is related to this site. And all these sites are related to whatever the hub is, like in this case, YouTube, which is related to my main money site and my maps listing, guys. So that's the major importance of this. Okay. So I know it gets confusing, but the way that, they're using it over on, like semantic mastery for the most part is they're looking at creating all these different sites and then, tying them all together and taking the RSS feed of your YouTube your YouTube channel, so that every time we upload a new YouTube video, it's going to syndicate out across all of these network sites in that ring that, that you see here. And when I say syndicate out, I just mean it's going to basically embed the video and give a link back to the YouTube video itself. So what happens is right away, this can really do wonders for your ability to rank videos, because a video gets uploaded, it automatically gets syndicated out across not just any properties, but all these really high authority properties that are thematically related, that are, have the same persona, all that stuff. And it's linking back, 20 times or whatever to your YouTube video. Boom, massive authority. In some cases you can get ranked very, very quickly like that. In some cases you have to, do more work. You have to build second tier links or, third tier links even to all these different network properties that are created, because, as standalone properties, they may not have the page authority there, right? The domain authority is there, but we're creating pages on a high domain authority site that doesn't have really any page authority right away. What we're playing on is the fact that the domain authority is interlinked and that our themes and personas are interlinked, but we can take it a step further and do second and third tier links over to these profiles to get them boosted, the page authority boosted, meaning that every time now I upload a YouTube video, it gets syndicated out, and that link that comes back to my video has even more authority. So hopefully that makes sense. So what in the hell does this have to do with maps? You're probably thinking by now. A lot. Because what we're going to be doing and what I'm going to be teaching you is, we are in the age of the blended algorithm for the most part. Your ability to rank on maps is, in most cases, directly correlated with your ability to get ranked, on page 2 or page 1 of Google organically. So what I'm going to be teaching you is going to help you do that. It's going to help get that taken care of. We can do things like unstructured citations as well. So every time I upload a YouTube video, for instance, I can put an unstructured citation in the description, and every link back that, every backlink that points back to my YouTube video is going to hit that video, and it's going to have my citation in there, my unstructured citation. So, it can help that way. But what I'm talking about is the actual link that we put in the description that goes back to the site. Okay. So we're going to talk about 3 types of networks: the YouTube network that you see here, and then we're going to talk about niche specific networks, and then geo specific networks. And I'm going to show you how I use those niche and geo specific networks with blog content, and then how I position that blog content, how I interlink that blog content with other pages on my site to spread around that domain authority and to basically pass through all these different keywords to my category pages, which are going to get me ranked. So stick with me here. I know this is confusing now. It'll make sense in a minute. So if we start with the basic YouTube type of ring or network here, here's how we would use it for our advantage in maps. Each YouTube video that we create would have a different link back to a different category page on our website. And remember, our categories are directly tied to our maps listing categories, guys. It would also, that link is going to be highly relevant from a contextual standpoint, because in our description of our YouTube video, we're going to have, descriptions about divorce, for instance, or child support, or wherever it is it's going. And we can do this multiple times. We could have 4 or 5 child support videos, each time going to our child support page with child support content. And every time I upload that new video, it's going to get syndicated out. And each of these properties that you see in the outer ring here are going to point back to that video and give it a link back to that video, which in turn is going to up the authority level and basically, power up that link that's going back to my child support page or my child custody page, which is going to increase my rankings, and will, because of the blended algorithm stuff, it's going to then have the effect of making me rank higher, which is then going to push my maps listing up higher as well, especially in competitive niches. You can use this from a geographic perspective too, guys. You don't have to stick with just themed content. So I can upload videos to my Red Hill Family Law channel, my YouTube channel, that are all about Irvine, with content all about Irvine. And, the link back maybe goes to wherever. It can go to the home page. It can go to wherever we want it to go. It can go to different category pages. And now I'm sending a different type of signal, a geo-specific signal, from YouTube, powered up by these tier 2 links from highly authoritative sources that you see in the outer ring that are now all about Irvine or Orange County. So we can do that. So we can use YouTube to our advantage. And through the magic of IFTTT, it's going to make that happen on autopilot. Every time we upload YouTube, it's going to create basically a trigger, which is going to send it out to the RSS feed out to all these properties, which is then going to in turn send a link back to YouTube. So we're going to use it to create themes, thematic, associations between our YouTube videos that will directly link back to our categories for whatever you're doing. So if you're in the HVAC niche, just to give you another example, we would have videos about heating, videos about cooling, videos about air conditioning systems, videos about heating pumps, all going to different category pages on our site. Then if we're located in Cleveland, we would have videos to that same channel all about Cleveland going to various points of our site. And you can see we're in sort of a combination sort of manner, we are able to get geo and niche relevant content pushed back to points in our site that are going to matter. They're going to help drive up our site. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So let me show you, sorry about that. This is the next one here where we're going to talk about not using YouTube. We're going to talk about using an RSS feed from your blog to niche themed sites. Okay. And what we're doing here is, they teach a little of this at Semantic Mastery, but we're going to be doing it quite a bit differently. And I'm going to show you kind of how it works in a lot more detail and why it works. Okay. So what we're doing is, imagine on your site, let's say, go back to the Red Hill Family Law example. I've got a blog there and I'm going to, twice a week add some blog content or curated blog content. So, you could add a full blog article that's been written, or you can do it yourself or have somebody curate some other content where they are going out and maybe they're looking at a news site about divorce and they're creating a little summary about it with a link to the original source. And the point is that you're posting on a regular basis, which you should be doing in competitive niches. Blogs are definitely not dead. It's the way that people use blogs and try to create these standalone blogs that don't interlink with anything, so they don't have a ton of they don't spread the juice around. Let's put it that way. It's just like their standalone blog posts. So blogs are not dead. Blogs increase the authority of your site, the number of pages of your site, which increases the authority of your site. But where people get it wrong is they don't interlink the blog posts themselves together. So if there's one post that's related to another post, you should be interlinking those. And where they really get it wrong is there's an opportunity to be taking every single blog post we have, and I'll show you this in a diagram in a minute, but taking each blog post, guys, and having our keywords that we want linking over to our category sites from our blog posts. So imagine, you create a blog post that's all about child custody, for instance, okay? And at the end of it, you say, learn more about child custody, which takes you to, in my earlier example, my lawyer page, my /lawyer page, because that was a category page. But remember that category page I created all about child custody. So imagine the blog post is published, and at the end of the blog post I say learn more about child custody, which links over to my category page /lawyer. Now, in and of itself, that doesn't have a ton of power because I'm not really going out and linking to that blog. Over time it's going to increase the domain authority of that site because it just becomes a massive site because you're blogging all the time. But you need to still have links coming back into your site, and you want to have thematic links that are coming back in over and over again. And so here's how we automate this process using the same IFTTT stuff, using the same kind of network. I would set up a separate network where you're not using YouTube as your hub, you're using the RSS feed from your blog on your main site. So in this case, Red Hill Family Law would have a blog, and there's always an RSS feed from that blog. And all we're doing is through IFTTT, instead of saying, hey, take the YouTube video and syndicate it out, we're saying, every time I upload a new blog post, take that and syndicate it out across all of these platforms. And guess what happens? All of those platforms then take that article, post it on there, and you get a link back to your blog post, right? From all of these powerful sites that are, again, thematic, they're interlinked, all the personas match. And what happens is that link back, or all those links back to that one blog post, which, by the way, is not going to have a bunch of, exact match anchors or partial match anchors. It's just going to have a link, right? It's just going to be like a naked URL. So you're not going to over optimize your blog post. So now you've got 20 authoritative links coming in right away because you've syndicated your content out, going right back to your blog post. Guess what happens then? The magic of our interlinking just took over, where all these sites that are now pointing back to my blog post are going to essentially pass through the interlink that I created that said learn more about child custody, and pass the authority over to my child custody page, having the effect of upping the ranking of my child custody page. So I hope you're starting to see the power of this, guys. So every time you can have a different blog post, maybe the next one's about family law, and you've got a little blog post about family law, and you say learn more about family law. And by the way, you want to change up your interlinking anchors that you use. Don't use the same language over and over and over again. Change it up every single time. It doesn't have to be your keyword, although it can be. You can use variations of your keywords, that you're trying to rank for. So, I get asked all the time, and I talked about in an earlier video, how do I rank for more and more keywords on maps? Well, first off, you need to research which keywords pull a maps listing. But I would highly encourage you, if you made a list of 7 different keywords for that specific theme, let's say it's child custody, there's all these keywords related to child custody, I would have, 7 different blog posts, not all at the same time, guys, just, over a period of time, that are all about child custody. And I would use probably a longer tail variation of my keyword, like learn more about finding a child custody lawyer in Irvine, California here. That's a super long tail, by the way. But you get the point. You mix it up, but you can squeeze in a partial match version of your keyword. You don't want to keep saying Irvine child custody attorney in every blog post. Mix it up. Use just child custody attorney. Find an Irvine child custody attorney. Child custody attorney in Irvine, California here. You get the point, but you mix it up so it never matches throughout each post. So you're not over optimizing your site with your interlinking. But what you're doing is you're getting, lots and lots of variations of keywords, which are going to help you. And let's say that there's, 3 other types of keywords. Maybe it's visitation and two other related keywords that pull a maps listing. Well, I'm going to have a blog post about child custody and visitation and say things like learn more about an Irvine visitation attorney here in my blog post. And again, it's going to take the RSS feed automatically, populate all these sites, give me a naked URL link back to the original source, which is the blog post, which then has my interlink in it. Okay. So I hope you see the power of this, guys. This is what is going to really separate you big time. So not only, you could have no intention of ever ranking maps, and you should still use this type of technique, because it's going to, just by adding the blog post is going to up the domain authority level of your site. And then by syndicating it out across all these other sites, you're getting all these high domain authority sites pointing back at your original post, which then interlinks out to other pages on your site, boosting up those pages. So we're doing it for 2 purposes. We are doing it because we're going to get an organic ranking. We're going to get lots of organic rankings, which in turn, because they're being pushed to our category pages, is going to up the positioning, the rankings of our organic sites, which, as we've seen, has a massive effect on our ability to rank on maps. So that's the power of this stuff, okay? Next, we're going to talk about geo-themed sites. So you can do the exact same thing that we just talked about, where you create another whole network, and the persona of the network at that point maybe is not at all Red Hill family law. Maybe it's all about Irvine, California. So you've got things to do in Irvine, California.wordpress.com, things to do in Irvine, California.blogspot.com. So it's themed all the same way. The personas are all the same. All the content that's going to go on there is about Irvine, about Orange County, whatever it is. And so now we're giving all this geo-relevance, which I've beaten to death in this training, but you know how important it is by now, to where our blog post that goes on our site, guys, we're gonna mix it. We're gonna, instead of doing something about child custody, we're gonna do something about Irvine, something about Orange County, or several articles about Irvine. And again, the RSS feed goes out, it populates all these sites, it sends back a naked URL link to our site about Irvine, or to our post about Irvine, and then we can further spread that out by interlinking to wherever we want using different variations of Irvine. Learn more about Irvine businesses here, and maybe it takes them over to the divorce page. More about Irvine, California here. Orange County facts and statistics here, and it pushes out to another page on your site. So you get the point. The rules really are just make sure that on your blog post it's always original content, and that you don't use the same interlinking pattern where you're using the same anchor text over and over again. Also, it's highly important to interlink between your blog posts. So what I'm teaching you is linking from your blog post to a category page, or it could be to other pages where it's not a category page, but it pulls Google shows a listing for it, even though it's not in a category. We've seen that before. Could link over to that. But you want to mix up your anchors all the time. And then you want to always find ways to interlink your posts together. So if you're in a child custody article and you talk about family law somewhere, it might make sense to link over to another blog post that's about family law. So what this is going to do, guys, over time is that if we interlink our blog posts as well as linking out to category pages, when we send these links back to our blog posts, it's going to have the effect of driving up the category page, plus it's going to push through juice over to the interlinked post that maybe was about family law. So now suddenly that post gets boosted up, and whatever interlink was on that post is also going to get boosted up and send some juice over to that other category page from the other post. So I hope that makes sense. This kind of lays it out. I will try to save this slide and add it so you can check it out. But you can see right here, this is sort of exactly what I've explained. Money site blog RSS feed goes out to all network properties. Network properties in turn send the link back to the site, or in this case, various points of the site. And so in the case of what we're talking about, it's blog post. Here's an example blog post about child custody, interlinks to my lawyer page, child custody page. My anchor text on that blog post was child custody attorney in Irvine, California. Blog post syndicates out across all network sites, sending the link back to the original blog post. So now we have all these links from authoritative themed interconnected sites pointing back to my blog post, which then passes the authority through to our category page through interlinking. So this kind of explains what I just went through showing you in the network sites. So I get a question all the time, how many of these network sites should I have? And I can't answer that. It's really as many as it takes. I would have one for your YouTube syndication, because we want to be able to have things coming in, originating from different properties. So one that originates from YouTube, for instance, you can take it further and syndicate from like a Web 2.0, where the hub, the origin point, could be like a very high domain authority Tumblr property that you buy. Let me just back up and give you an idea here. So instead of this here, instead of it coming from my actual money site feed, it could be that Tumblr is the hub, right? And maybe we have a Tumblr property that we've purchased in advance that's already high domain authority, and all of our content goes here, and we take the RSS feed from Tumblr and we syndicate it out to here and here and here and here. So we can do that. You know, YouTube network, you know, an entire YouTube network I recommend for sure. And then I would probably have two more networks, which are what I mentioned, a geo-specific network and then a themed network that is branded, basically, meaning that, you know, the 20 different sites that we have are Red Hill Family Law, Red Hill Family Law. So one that's themed with, you know, set up to take on niche-based content that's all about our brand, and one that is a totally different network that you set up that's all about geography. So it's all about Irvine or Orange County in this case, and all the content that we syndicate out is going to be about Irvine and Orange County. So at a minimum, I'd have probably 3 of these rings. And by the way, it doesn't stop here. It really, like, this is a single tier. This is only one tier. We can go much further where we've got additional tiers that are pointing, you know, over to this ring right here, which juices up that ring. So you can go crazy with this stuff and have, you know, 3 and 4 outer rings that connect to this one inner ring, you know, that's all tied to your whatever, your blog, your YouTube, your blog, whatever it is. And it's just going to give it more and more layers of authority. So it's really just depends on how much you want to spend, and what results you're looking for and how fast. You know, you don't necessarily need these giant rings, but do they help? Absolutely. So I'm going to drop a link where you can order these directly from us. We'll get them built for you, interconnected in such a way that the personas are set up, the thematic relevance is set up. It's all plugged in and dialed into IFTTT, so you don't have to do any of this stuff yourself. It can take, if you're doing this yourself, it will take you probably 4 or 5, 6 hours to create one of these rings, because you have to set up each property by hand, verify the property, add, you know, a little piece of content onto it, interlink it properly, set up your IFTTT recipes. You know, it can be a pain in the butt, I can tell you that, but we can just get them done for you and deliver them to you ready to go. So that's my recommendation. It's much easier that way. So I will put this slide here and probably a slide of, you know, showing the rings that will give you an idea underneath the video. So I know this video ran long, but this is extremely important advanced stuff that's going to take your maps and your website and your YouTube videos, by the way, too. You're really killing 3 birds with 1 stone to a whole nother level by taking these steps, guys. So hopefully this has been helpful, and I will see you over in the next video. Take care.